Welcome to But Jesus Drank Wine.
And other stories that kept us stuck. I'm Mead.
And I'm Christy.
And in this podcast, we'll explore the stories that kept us, well, stuck, wanting to drink and not wanting to drink all at the same time.
Join us as we show you that freedom from alcohol does not have to mean a life sentence of misery and missing out,
but actually means living an authentic life full of peace, joy, and purpose.
Welcome to the pod today, y'all. So excited to introduce you to our guest, none other than Bob Goff. We just finished recording with him, having a conversation with him, having a chat. My cheeks are sore. My cheeks hurt from laughing so much and smiling so much. What a just joy it is to be around Bob. And I wanted to pop back on here and share, in case there's anybody that doesn't know who Bob Goff is. He is the author of the New York Times bestselling book, Love Does, Everybody Always, Dream Big and Undistracted, which, by the way, y'all, in the back of Love Does is he put his phone number. And while we were getting ready to get started recording this conversation, he answered 2 phone calls. That phone rings and he answers it. And 2 people that he's like, all right, call me back in 45 minutes. I'll chat. So it's just so amazing. He is the honorary consul to the Republic of Uganda, an attorney, and the founder of Love Does, a nonprofit human rights organization operating in India, Uganda, Nepal, Somalia, Afghanistan, USA, Congo, Dominican Republic, Ukraine, Poland, Israel, Burkina Faso, and Mexico. He's a lover of balloons, cake pops, and helping people pursue their big dreams. Bob continues to be inspired by friendships he's developed with others around the world who live their lives pursuing strategic ways to help others. You can find Bob writing and taking calls from his boat, welcoming people to the Oaks, his Southern California retreat center, which, by the way, y'all, oh my gosh, we did a whole episode on our retreats, and I cannot say enough wonderful things about the Oaks. If you go to their website now or after you listen to this and check out what retreats they have available and go. You will not be disappointed. And Bob's a speaker. His greatest ambitions in life are to love others, do stuff, and most importantly, hold hands with his wife, sweet Maria Goff, and spend time with their amazing kids and grandkids. He is someone that just loves people well. And he's been such a blessing to me in my life. And I am just so excited for y'all to be blessed by him today and the conversation. It was a lot of fun, a lot of wisdom. He has this gift for making wisdom really fun so that you can take your next steps in whatever journey you're working on, freedom from alcohol journey, faith journey, wherever you are. So we hope you enjoy. Welcome. Hi, y'all.
Hey, everybody.
Oh, my God. So if y'all don't recognize that voice, I would imagine most people would. We have our friend Bob. Bob Goff is here with us on the podcast today. Bob, thank you so much for joining us for a conversation. Yeah.
So much. It's just a delight to be with you guys. Thanks for including me.
We're so excited. And so we have the best listeners in the world who are women like we were previously, where we were looking to find freedom from alcohol. We were stuck in a mommy wine cycle of, looking for wine at the end of a day after momming and working and trying to take the edge off using that, looking forward to girls' nights outs and weekends and social events, and wine kind of just taking up way too much space in our lives. So our listeners are starting that journey. Some listeners are free like we are and looking for like kind of that next, big dream. What's next for me? And so we just wanted to invite you into the conversation to see what could you encourage our listeners with around starting journeys and dreaming big.
Yeah. So sometimes we think we need to be equipped and know everything about a topic, and then we're going to say something really smart about it. And I think it's kind of like the opposite. It's more of this Forrest Gump, like I did the next thing. I'm in the middle of writing a book called People, Wine, and Horses. And the reason I'm calling that is that I've got a vineyard, 50,000 bottles of wine every year, if that isn't triggering. But I don't like the taste of wine. I'm like a Dr. Pepper guy. And I know very little about wine. I just thought it would be really neat. The vines and what keeps them green. And it turns out what keeps the leaves so green when the ground is really parched is the roots go down 40 feet. Isn't that crazy? And so the idea that to find deep roots in friendships, right? If faith guides your step, find deep roots there. I don't know anything about horses, and I got a couple dozen of those as well. I, I barely know what end to put the saddle on, but I'm learning a ton about horses too. And if you put about a dozen horses out in a field, one might be a Tennessee trotter, and another one's a stallion, and another one's a kind of trail horse. But within about 45 minutes, all their hearts start beating together. Isn't that crazy? They all syncopate. And it's because they're such highly sensitive animals. That's why we use them for equine therapy and all that. And think of that idea of like our hearts beating together. Each of us are like wired differently. We have different kind of addictive personalities. Like I'm addicted to activity. Like I make coffee nervous. I'm like, just go, 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 go. And so figure out what your nuance is and then say, what is that connected to? Like, why is it that your go-to is, and then fill out the blank. So a lot of us are just like more activity is a medicator for a bunch of insecurity. I don't have to think about how insecure I am because I'm too busy on purpose. So I just love what you guys are doing. So I would just say that my observation is that if you become a student of some of the things that you don't quite understand, then it actually is kind of fun. Like I'm having so much fun writing this book because I don't know anything about wine. I don't know anything about horses. And it turns out I know a lot less about people than I thought. And so we, that makes me a student. I have been flying airplanes around. I live in a really remote place in Canada for part of the year. And the only way in and out is on a seaplane. And so anytime I get in the pattern at an airport, I always identify myself as a student pilot. I've been with us for 20 years, but people are nicer to me. It's like old guy, student pilot, give the guy a break. And so just like you see a student driver going down the road, you don't like cut him off or speed up or tailgate him. You just give him a break. So some of your listeners could say, I'm a student of, and then insert. I feel like I'm a student of Jesus. I'm a student of kindness. I'm a student of marriage. I'm a student of friendship. Yeah.
Ooh, that's so good. I'm thinking about the conversation, Christy, we just had in our community, our But Jesus Drink Wine community, where it's the idea of having to kind of like practice the new ways of doing things and how easy it is for us to then turn that negative voice that we have that perhaps is coming from the enemy, but we hear that negative voice and that keeps us kind of in a place of stuck or not wanting to move forward. And so what if we could picture ourselves with like driving the car of this journey of trying to find freedom from alcohol, and we have that, student driver sticker magnet on the back that my kid will not let me put on her car because I'm like, but by the way, like people need to know that you're a student driver because they are more friendly, but she's mortified. She won't let me do it. I'm fine, whatever. But if we could picture ourselves in that car with Jesus and having, the student magnet on the back, how would that be different for, the stories that they tell themselves and the ways they want to beat themselves up when it's not going as fast as they want it to or whatever?
I also think about that idea that we oftentimes aren't as kind to ourselves as we ought to be. And that's will turn the wine back into water faster than a lot of self-accusation and all that. So it isn't going light on our failures. It's just going so big on grace that they'd be like, I don't know, man. I used to keep a win-loss column and I just don't anymore. I'm not a big sports guy. My only sport is cheesecake. But I would say, instead of trying to keep track of the wins and the losses, to say, hey, we're in a pile of problems and to find kind voices, really in unlikely places. You know that I spend a lot of time at San Quentin, and it's not because I knock off liquor stores, but teaching a class there for a decade or so. And these guys that are in the class, they're just amazing. I've talked to them all the time. I bet I get 3 calls a day from prison. They're not looking for an alibi. They're just looking for a friend. And there's been something really great. It'd be great if you had both. But if you can only have one thing, just be a really safe place for people. If your battle is with any type of addiction, for me, it's activity. For somebody else, it might be they're medicating their concerns with alcohol, whatever it is. But once you see what it is, then you can see what it's connected to. As soon as you see what it's connected to, and it's usually an unfulfilled need, you just have
Mhm.
an unfulfilled need. And so, and then that wiggles. Did you guys, when you were young, have that game, pick up sticks? You just drop
Mhm.
all the sticks and try to pull a stick out without making another one wiggle. And
Mhm.
sometimes the one that wiggles, you didn't know it was connected to that. But I would say sometimes in this adventure, whether it's towards sobriety or towards more intentional life or whatever it is that's your path, to say, when you do something that's a little bit aberrant, to say, I wonder what made that wiggle over there. I wonder why that thing ended up like, so they must be connected in a weird way. And then just figure out what weird way they're connected and just give yourself a little grace.
I love that so much. Actually just was texting with a client yesterday, and she was saying she had a really hard day and she was thinking about drinking. And I literally said, "What's the unmet need? What do you truly, truly need right now in this moment?" And she said, "I really need a hug." And I was like, "Okay, I want you to
Yeah.
go inside and I want you to hug your daughter and then call your best friend. And if no one else will want, I'll give you a virtual hug." You know, and that was,
Yes.
it was so easy too. The response was she knew as soon as I had asked, what's the need? She's like, "I need a hug. I don't need a bottle
Yes.
of Cabernet. I need a hug."
Yes. And I love that this conversation spanning the Atlantic Ocean now. You're in London right now or
Yes,
that
yeah,
area?
yeah.
Yeah. So I just remember going to this, poor family. They were so nice to invite us over. And they had just a very humble tablecloth. And this was their wedding gift that they'd been given decades before. And they invited us over. And you guys are big on those little votive candles. And then they had party poppers because it was around Christmas time. And you
Mhm.
remember the paper hats and
Yeah, Christmas crackers, yeah.
yeah, well, so those Christmas crackers then yielded all these party hats, and I have 3, like, crazy kids, and so somehow the party tissue hat got near the votive candle. Oh
Oh,
my
no.
gosh, it was like the Great Fire of London all over
Oh,
again
no.
as it burnt down their tablecloth. I was
Oh,
like,
no.
"Oh my gosh," and it may not have been a tablecloth that burned up for you. It could have been a relationship that caught fire or an ambition or a hope or a kid or whatever, but it's kind of what you do next. We were so
Mm.
ashamed that we spent most of our time in London trying to replace the tablecloth. And I
Mhm.
think they would have preferred that we just enjoy London and feel like we didn't do it. So my point is that mistakes are going to happen. And when mistakes happen, you need to have a strategy. And I would imagine you've been giving a lot of tools to your friends about some strategies. Like when it gets a little weird, then have a go to. Don't try to figure it out in the moment. Oh, the Great Fire of London started, of all places, on Pudding Lane in a bakery. I'm not kidding. This is why I passed the bar exam. I just know all the random dots. There were 1,100 men walking around London to fight fires at the time. Oh, they were on the night patrol. And what happened is that they needed to take down a building on each side of that bakery on Pudding Lane, and they didn't take down the buildings, and the whole city burned down. And had they just taken out one house on each side of that, and the smart people knew, but nobody acted. And so think about creating a little space between you and something that's about to burn you down. That might be a friend, it might be a relationship. We're quick to call things toxic that are actually just wonky. I would just say
Yeah,
it's just
that's true.
wonky. Yeah, just a wonky friend. They're not bad. You're not bad. Everything's good. But the fire is going to spread. So just to be quick to just isolate that and then just say, like, we're not going to let my entire life burn down right now. What I'm going to try to do is take this one thing, kind of isolate it from others.
I love that you went from London to the Fire of London to that. You're
And
amazing.
we ended up on Pudding Lane. You gotta look that up while you're doing there. Get your little GPS, find Pudding Lane, and there's gotta be a plaque or something singed around all sides.
Well, my kids studied the Great Fire of London, I think both in year 1, and I didn't know any of that, so I'm gonna go quiz them after this and see if they remember what they learned at school.
Yes, and the water pipes at the time were just hollowed out birch trees. Isn't that crazy? They take these elm and birch trees, haul them out because there's no, like, pipes back then, and it turns out that they weren't up for the task, like, that they just couldn't handle the amount of water that was needed, and so I just think of so many analogies to just whether it's a counselor that you need or, some input from a safe person. Um, I imagine you guys have touched on this, but there's a difference between well-intentioned people and knowledgeable people. So you could be
Mm.
surrounded by really well-intentioned well-wishers when really, like, this is a five alarmer. We actually need to get somebody who knows about some of the things that are like kind of triggering you. And before I went to counseling, I thought trigger was the name of the Lone Ranger's horse. But it turns out, because I found knowledgeable people to surround myself with, that they could help kind of guide me through the parts that I couldn't access. I would see things wiggle and they could say that probably is connected to. So instead of having it be amateur night, to find some people who are actually really knowledgeable and draw them close. And then have safe people to surround you, like surround all that knowledge.
That's what you've been so helpful for me, being one of those trusted voices. We have you as my coach. I've had the great privilege of doing that with you for several months now. And the difference that that makes in having someone who wants the best for you and is really knowledgeable and can be that one of your trusted voices. We were just having this conversation about how the importance of seeking friendships that, are the same way, not just the friends that say all the right things, the things that we want to hear, but the friends that really want to see us living into like God's best for us. Can you speak a little bit about the value of relationships and friends and people? I think it's funny that you said you're learning about people you don't know nearly as much as you do, but yet you people so well. And so I would think that you are someone that is knowledgeable in that area. Can you speak a little bit about having relationships that fit that?
Yeah, just head on a swivel. I remember as a young lawyer, you take a deposition. And so somebody sits across you, and there'd be in my area, there was probably 40 lawyers against me. So it was just me, this young kid, and like 40 lawyers in there. And so you give these admonitions to people. You say, like, so we're taking your deposition, and then what you say, the court reporter's taking down. Anyway, there's this whole spiel that you take. And the 100th time you've done it, it gets pretty easy. But the first time, it's like young Bobby Goff, like super insecure. So I wrote it all down and I slid it across the table and I said, could you just read this and sign it? And I remember the mean lawyer on the other side, like snarled at me, said, we're not here to sign things. What's your next question? Or we're out of here. And I was like, oh my gosh. And while I thought it was so mean, man, I learned 3 years worth in that day. So sometimes the people that are the most difficult and challenging people in your life, you should be like just writing them thank you letters to say, man, I'm learning more about how flawed and bent I am in my life because this was a challenging relationship. Yet you don't need to stay in proximity to that person, that you can actually air gap that a little bit. So just knowing when it comes to friendships, like who do you draw close to and who do you air gap? I'm not saying dismiss them, discount them, whatever. I just like you just need to create a little bit more space. Insert here every father-in-law or mother-in-law joke. You've been out to the Oaks, and I think I told you about that one cow we've got with great big horns. And so I asked the guy delivering it, is this a nice cow? Because we have like lots of people who come to pet the cows. He said, oh, super nice in his big Texas accent. And it got off the trailer and it gored me. Like it went in me. And I said, like, I thought you said it was nice. And the guy said, she don't know she has horns. I love that. So sometimes people that are a little prickly, they just don't know they have horns. So if you look and imagine as a hack over their head is a thought bubble, they just said something really triggering or super lame to you. Just think in their thought bubble, they're thinking, I'm being really helpful right now. when you're realized, no, you're being really stupid right now, but to just say in their mind, they're being really helpful. And so I would just air gap that. I'd be polite. I'm not going to try to pick a fight, but I'm also not going to continue to be exposed to that. So I just air gap it a little bit, spend a little bit of time, and then rededicate my efforts to being a really safe person that can read the room. And you're going to mess up. But I guess it's like, what do you do when you mess up? Right? What happens? There's a guy that's this little startup that's rolling out in the next couple of weeks. And he's done this successfully before with some stuff we've all been exposed to. And I said, like, so how do you know which are the ones that are actually going to work? And he said, I feel like a Roomba vacuum cleaner most of the time. And I'm like, what? I don't get it. He said, I just bump into every single wall and I pivot a little bit. And then I bump into a new wall and I pivot a little bit and I hit a chair and I pivot. And eventually he's kind of mapped out the room. So instead of beating yourself up when you have either a setback or you let yourself down, you said something you wish you wouldn't have said or did something you wish you wouldn't have done, just to say, man, I'm going full Roomba on that. I'm going to bump into it. And I just don't want to bump into the same wall in the same place. I'm okay hitting a new wall in a different place, but not the same wall in the same place. And that just is a fun definition of grace, to just like breathe in just a little bit of like turmoil and breathe out grace. Just say, I'm breathing in. I understand it totally sucks. And just breathe out a little grace. Because otherwise, if you just breathe it in and hold your breath, you'll turn blue and everybody around you will turn blue. So you just need to breathe in that stuff, but then breathe out a little grace rather than saying like, I'm just going to get even, or, I mean, we're lawyers. We win arguments for a living, but I'm not trying to be Jesus's lawyer anymore. I'm not trying to be somebody else's lawyer, because being mean is bad advocacy. It just makes guys like me try harder. Right. The meaner you are, the harder I try.
So true. Yeah.
Responding to the heartfelt requests from you, our wonderful, wonderful listeners, for a deeper sense of community, we are so excited to introduce y'all to the But Jesus Drink Wine community.
Get ready to be part of an exclusive experience where you'll join a sisterhood of kindred spirits on a transformative journey of faith, sobriety, and personal growth.
You'll gain access to our private community, a place where deep connections can flourish among women who share your aspirations of strengthening faith in Christ and breaking free from alcohol.
But wait, there's more. We'll host regular connection calls to facilitate fellowship with like-minded gals, no matter where you stand on your alcohol or faith journey. Whether you're seasoned or just curious, you are very warmly welcomed here.
Prepare to be inspired by guest expert sessions and engaging Q&As that explore the essential topics for your sobriety, faith, and holistic wellness journey.
Don't miss out on securing your spot. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.
We can't wait to see your beautiful face in the But Jesus Drink Wine community.
I was remembering, coming to the Oak Center, what a treat that was. And I was thinking about the cows, and y'all were referring to the cow by this certain type. What's the name of that cow?
Oh, they're Scottish Highlands.
Yes. Yeah.
Fuzzy cows.
Yeah, they kept saying Scottish
Oh.
Highlands. I'm like, yes, but what kind of animal is that? Because the horns threw me off. Anyway, all that to say that your way of just play and fun, I think that's something that in this space we can get kind of set on. Okay, I have this thing that is, I know that this wine situation, it is in my way and it's keeping me from being able to show up at the way I want to show up in my life. And we can get kind of set on that path and forget the importance of play and fun. And while we were standing there, we had you're driving the tractor down, you've got Sweet Maria next to you, and you're like, hey, does anyone want to see me hypnotize a chicken? And I'm like, wait, what? What? and y'all had all that rain and it was so muddy. And and you're like, all right, let me go get it. And you walk into the chicken coop and you start trying to get a chicken and you're sloshing around in the mud and your white sneakers are getting and it was so fun for me to be reminded of, which I said, I was like, I'm wearing my freckles today, not to be fancy, but because they're just fun. Bob Goff, you are so fun. And you remind us of what life really can be like when we're tapping into that. So for our listeners, the idea of play and fun and the importance of that for living kind of a full life. What would you say?
Well, yeah, at a time where all the disciples were arguing about who gets the big chair next to Jesus, Jesus grabs a little kid. And I wasn't there, but I bet, put her on his knee and said, unless you change and become like a child, you'll never enter the kingdom of God. And I was raised that you pray a prayer and you say, Jesus, I invite you and all that. I think there's more to it. I mean, just from the scriptures, it's a childlike faith. And so, I mean, it was Jesus, not somebody else commenting on Jesus. He said, it's going to be a childlike faith if you want to get into heaven. So, some of that playfulness is not childish. And I know a lot of guys who are childish, but a childlike faith to be curious, to be filled with wonder, to not like things stick to you. A kid, like, they're in the sandbox together and somebody grabs the plastic shovel and somebody's been out of shape for a minute and then they forget or just move on. So kind of like bookending both ends. So to say what I want to do is live in total anticipation. I want to be super curious. And then when you meet people along the way, just find out their story. It's Philippians 2:20. It's take a genuine interest in other people's welfare. That was Paul talking about Timothy. He said, that guy, Timothy, he's on to something here. So I think I just want to do that. And you'll meet just the most interesting people. There's a guy that I was visiting with recently that's become a friend over the last year. And he was writing country western songs in somebody's garage in Nashville, Tennessee, made a trip out to the West Coast, met a girl in a coffee shop, and not knowing that 3 years of courtship later, they'd get married. And now they're over in your neck of the woods over in Scotland. And he sees a statue of Robert the Bruce, and he sees another statue of William Wallace. And his last name is Wallace. And he's thinking, gosh, I wonder, in his childlike faith, I wonder if we're related. And so he becomes a student. He just like says, I want to learn everything about both of them. And he sits down and writes the first screenplay he has ever written called Braveheart.
Mm.
Is that awesome? Yeah, he's just living in Malibu in a trailer, just an awesome guy. The second screenplay he wrote was Secretariat. Then he wrote with Mel Gibson, The Passion of Christ. You know what he's working on now because he remains a student? The Resurrection of Christ. Isn't that beautiful? So the point is he has a childlike faith. If you met him, he's just like a nice surfer dude. He's just a super nice guy that stumbled into this idea by being a student. So I would say, as your listeners are launching into their day, get your head on a swivel, see things through the prism of a childlike faith, and then start writing down what you're learning.
That's so good. What's the lasso thing? Was that the lasso thing we did too
Yeah,
at the Oaks, right?
totally.
That's
Totally.
what that's what I want to continue to be a student of because I had that down. Like that was so fun. And I did
Oh, yeah,
succeed.
yeah.
I did. Yeah. Look out.
Wrist,
I
wrist,
want I
wrist.
want video evidence of that immediately, please.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get that greatest hits. But to find new things to try and to say, I don't know how this is going to work out. I assume there'll be a couple bruises along the way, some scratches, but that idea that I want to fail trying, I don't want to fail watching. And that's an
Mhm.
important pivot for us to take. And so for some people, it's really hard because there's been this perfection kind of cord strung through everything. But to say, no, I'm going to fail trying, like get a banjo, start learning the banjo, get some bagpipes. You guys will look great in kilts. Like, but to find something and to say, hey, listen, what I want to do is I'm going to engage my life, my faith, and what's going to happen. It isn't to be silly. It's because I want to engage people more deeply. I want to engage my faith more closely. I want to engage my pain with more acuity. I want to just, the more that you're doing that, you're showing up for your life. And that's what students, student drivers, student friends, student spouses do.
Can you also, this is something that you have taught me so well, the limited by our capabilities.
Yeah. So we were having a conversation about, say, each of us have, a past and a bright future. And my capability was in being a lawyer. And I actually kind of liked being a lawyer. I live in San Diego right now, and did for 27 years of this legal career. and I commuted to Seattle to work every morning. I would fly up on Alaska Airlines. I would go to work and then I'd fly home for supper. Then the next morning I'd get up, I'd fly to Seattle for work and I'd come. That's why I write books. You have so much time eating peanuts and time alone. So I had this law firm on the 17th floor of this, and I walked in the office. The receptionist said, "Who are you here to see?" I'd said, "My name is actually right behind you." And I realized I had not been in my office for almost a year. And the people that worked there didn't even know me. I didn't know them. And so it was a Thursday, and I tend to quit things on Thursdays just to kind of keep things moving, not be a hoarder. So I got everybody together in the conference room and I quit. And I took the key off my ring. I gave it to a guy that'd been working for me for a decade. I said, "This whole thing, it's all yours. You don't owe me a penny." And he said, "Like, are you kidding me?" He didn't say kidding, but that's what he meant. And I never have gone back. I think that was 11 years ago. I've been kind of clean and sober on winning arguments and beating people up for 11 years. And among the people I stopped beating up was me. I just said, like, I just have some more gear. So being limited by your capabilities is to continue to do what it is that you're capable of doing. And so what a childlike faith would say is like this idea of calling. Like I don't get calls from Jesus, I get calls from everybody else. But that nudge that you feel, is it lasting? Is it important? Is it other centered? Is it so you can do your own vetting? You can use Matthew 25, hungry people, thirsty people, sick people, strange people, naked people, people in jail. James talks about widows and orphans. I mean, it's a pretty short list. And I decided to do those things and it cost me my career. And it was, I'm so delighted. Now, it wasn't a good financial move to do that, but it's a great new creation. It's a power move when it comes to being a new creation. And I just didn't want to spend 5 years landing the plane. Say, like, I'll sell it to you and you can pay me this and I'll work that. And it's just like, I'm out. So go full Cortez, burn the ships. And if you know the idea of Cortez, when everybody is deciding whether to leave or stay, he just lit all the ships on fire. He said, "What's your next question?"
I love it.
I'm sorry, the phone is ringing in the background. This is my life. My phone number is in the back of 4 million books. And so I just get calls.
Yeah.
But what about doing this? What about I'm never the smartest guy in the room, but what if you became the most available person in the room? That would be a great ambition to say, what I'm going to do with some of the addiction what I'm going to do is counter that with just tremendous availability to the right things and the right people. And there'll be some people I need to air gap, but I hope to be known as the person who was available. I hope to be known as the person who has a childlike faith. So finish that sentence. I hope to be known as, and then just go live into that. Live it like it's yours right now. This isn't positive thinking or Tony Robbins walk across the coals. It's just to say, like, live the way you want to be known for. And they'd be like, I do this with a bunch of folks that play music in Nashville. I say, take away everything that you're known for, and whatever's left is who you are. So you have somebody that writes a great movie or a great book or a great song or whatever. Take all that away. Bob the lawyer, take that away. Bob the balloon guy, take that away. Take away whatever you're known for, whatever's left is who you are. It's a great exercise just to take a really honest look and then say, well, who is that person becoming? So forget who you were, because that's in the rearview mirror, but say who you turn it into, and then just like live into that.
I love that, because I think that's where I can think of, I have her face in my mind right now where she's like, okay, now that I've found freedom from alcohol, I do have all this space. It's freed up all this space and time. And it's a good problem to have, but also like, what do I do with this space at this time? And it's, and like I've said before, I'm like, it doesn't have to be anything, doesn't have to be some big thing. It can be. And you talk about having absurd expectations. I mean, it can be just, being the guy that's available, being for people, showing up the way you want to show up.
Show up with the sparkles.
Yeah, show up on
No,
it.
like that's
Tuesday
and
with
then
sparkles.
sometimes let people know why you're doing what you're doing. Like I wear a mood ring. Like, and so Sweet Marie and I never talk about where I am. We talk about how I am. And so there's something beautiful about it. If we talk about where I am and I'm in Mogadishu or one of these places where we're doing some stuff, that would be not a positive thing in her life. But if we talk about how I am, that can be a really positive thing. Even if how I am is uncertain or whatever, just that finding those new levels of honesty with one another. Find a friend and say, let's just talk about, not about like, how are you? And then they say, fine. How are you? And then you say, fine. But just say, what does it feel like to be you right now? So tell me about
Mhm.
that. And so, and then while they're collecting their thoughts, because they haven't thought about that before, say, let me tell you what it feels like to be me. 100% anticipation, 100% anxiety, 100% of the time. So is that crazy? And so I medicate my anxiety, I've told you, with activity. And so when I find a little Bobby Goff bouncing off the walls, I just go like, hey, chill out, take a breath, get a puppy. Like I just need to just take it down a notch. And once you know your tells, then you can just know this is kind of like poker. Like if I had five of a kind, or actually you get shot if there's five of a kind, like four of a kind. So if I had four of a kind, I'd be all smiles. I couldn't hide it. I'd be like, this is awesome. So, and if I had a bad hand, I wouldn't be bummed because I wouldn't stake much on that. But once you know your tells, then you could say, one of my tells is to drink, or one of my tells is to get lost in a book, or one of my tells is, but once you know what your go to is to say, is that a healthy version for me? Is that what I want to be remembered for? And if the answer is no, then change it up, burn the ships.
So good. Talk to our moms and dads, would you, from a place of I mean, what I do know about you, you're an incredible dad. Like the stories that you told about how you connected with your children, learning skydiving lessons and one of your taking skydiving and showing up like, yeah, I'm here because I learned how to do this. Can you talk to the parents about how to be present with our kids? That's something I think that is a big desire for our people who are like, okay, like I want to get unstuck from this because this is how I want to be showing up with my kids. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that I'm right back to that taking a genuine interest.
Hmm.
Like if I had kids and they wanted to make pizzas, I'd grow tomatoes. Like just like whatever it is. Now, oh, I have two boys now that have learned how to play golf. And if there's ever a slow moving game, like that is not my jam. I'm like, no. But I got a golf club and I follow them around and I whack at that thing. And I don't care how many swings. I've never kept track. Like I've never kept score because it would be just a really big number. But I don't care. I'm with them. So taking a genuine interest, if photography was their jam, then I would just like, I don't know, I'd be a bird. Whatever it is that makes it so that you're in proximity or adjacent to the interests of your kids, and then I always have a kind of a pretty big list of things to do. Like, so if somebody's bored, they don't need to be bored for long. So I'll have all kinds of mischief. I'm off to a country that's having some setbacks this next week. And so I'll always invite a kid and they rarely can go. And so then I'll just run over there. I'll tell Maria when I get wherever it is, how I'm feeling, not where I am, and then do some things that are hopefully helpful and then run back. So I just say to know what you're good at, have lots of different ideas about what we could do, what might be possible, and then execute. And you don't have to go across an ocean, just go across the street. You won't find only two things in the scriptures about going across an ocean. Paul got shipwrecked and Jonah got eaten. So, but there's tons of stuff about going across the street, and a lot of it was directed at lawyers. Remember? What's the big commandment? Said the lawyer, trying to set up Jesus. And he said, love God and love your neighbors. And so maybe if you have young kids, to do something cool for your neighbors, get the crate paper out. We covered one of our neighbors who's now in heaven. We probably blew up 1,000 balloons and tied them to her house just to see if up was really true. And so we just like that kind of fun. It cost me a tank of helium and a couple balloons. And like, but that idea of going in, somebody that had a big setback at Christmas time, they lost somebody they loved, to go with these ornaments to all the neighbors and have them sign ornaments. And then they weren't going to get a tree because it was just like such a difficult time, but to show up to be kind of an instigator and not make it about you, but this is the community, all wanted you to have this. And so I just think that idea of engaging in creative, winsome ways, drop somebody a note. I write maybe 5 people a day, an encouraging note, people I don't know. Oh, I wrote Mike Tyson a note. I don't know the guy. I think he bites people's ears. So just give people an encouraging note. And you don't have to talk about their big failure or their big success, but just drop them a note. I don't expect to hear back from them, but why don't you just like think about that? And if we start taking an interest in the people around us, then you're going to have kids and friends and other people that are going to take an interest in the people around them. It's kind of fun. And then be the one person that stays in touch. Like there's just that one person to be intentional about your relationships. And it's all just the easy stuff. It won't be this big, grand, whatever that's going to get you. It's just going to be 1,000 little touches on this idea of making something for somebody. Make them a pie. If they don't want it, I do. There's a place up the way from the Oaks called Julian Apple Pies. And man, they make these killer pies. And I don't know anybody who doesn't want one of those. So you're like $7 away from really blowing somebody's mind.
I love it. I love laughing too. Gosh, my cheeks hurt from this fun. Well, thank you so much, Bob, for
Thanks for
blessing our
inviting me. This is
listeners.
great stuff. You guys are touching a lot of lives, and it'll be authenticity. It won't be the big stories and the big whatever. It'll be just genuine, authentic relationships that are memorable. That's how you want to be known at the city gates, that you just have genuine, authentic relationships with people, and that you go people and you just kind of keep it where it is. Everything's Vegas, like just like the conversations you have, the things that you do, you don't have to make a big deal about them. Just like go do something because it's really worth doing. You're not doing it so you can write a story about it. You just do it because it's worth doing. And then the crazy part is get your head on a swivel and see this Acts 1:1 evidence of Jesus. Wherever it is, you'll see the fingerprints of God on that. And then just be delighted in knowing like, oh, wow, I got another camera angle from somebody I was a student once again, and that they taught me something really important about tenacity, humility, courage. And these people are out there. Sometimes you need to go to them. Sometimes they'll come and find you.
Thank
Well,
you. Thank you for your time. When's the book coming out? Or do we know when the new book's coming?
Oh, who knows? There's always like the next one of my deal with this publisher. It's a very complicated contract. It has 2 words, next book. And there's no subject matter. It's just next book. So one went in August and one goes in next week. And then the People, Wine, and Horses is on deck right now. And I'm just like loving collecting ideas. There's a guy that lives in an area that has lots of problems right now. And so to go and learn from him, I'm just going to move in with him and learn for a while.
Oh my gosh. Of course you are. Of course you
It'd be
are.
fun, like to just go like, I'm a student, like, pass the hummus.
So good. Well, I find this hard to believe, but for anyone that is listening that hasn't read Love Does or Everybody Always or Undistracted or that beautiful children's book that you wrote with your daughter, y'all go out and get those, please, because they will bless you, as has this conversation. So, and we'll look forward to your next book, whenever that is.
All right. Well, we're all students in this together. It'll be good to learn together.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. You're the best. Appreciate
Thanks,
you so much.
guys. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. You can find all of our episodes at butjesusdrinkwine.com, and be sure to follow us over on Instagram, Love Life Sober, and I'm Not Sober, I'm Free.
To learn more about what we do, you can visit our websites, meethollandshirley.com and lovelifesober.com.
Take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with a friend or two.
And don't forget to subscribe to our pod so you don't have to worry about missing a single episode. And if you love what we're doing, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify.
This helps more women who are feeling stuck and alone in the overdrinking cycle find hope and encouragement.
Thanks, ladies. We so appreciate you, and we'll see you next Monday.